Hello everyone, my name is Major League Gaming Trap, and for today I am going to be ranking the different incarnations of Megatron from the least bad to the most evil. The rules are simple. 1. These are iterations from movies, cartoons, comics, and video games. And 2. This is all opinion based. With all of that out of the way, let us begin. Let's start off with the barely bad tier. This tier is for the antagonists that don't do enough evil or aren't that bad compared to the other villains.
He is the former leader of the Decepticons and Optimus' former archenemy. After realizing the plan of his old comrade Starscream, he joins Optimus and Windblade to stop him. Together with Optimus Prime returning to help him, Perceptor and Windblade to stop once against Starscream, who took control of Trypticon. He also returns as the leader of a small group among which are Windblade, Perceptor and Victorian, to survive and fight back before Megatron can wipe out them forever. Before he was leader of the Decepticons, Megatron fought as a gladiator, deriving his name from that of Megatronus. During the Great War, Starscream constantly schemed to claim leadership from Megatron, though he never succeeded. Megatron eventually killed Optimus Prime and was transformed into Galvatron by Unicron, though both of these were later reversed. Coming to the realization that war against the Decepticons had become a never-ending arms race, Optimus challenged Megatron to single combat, with their troops acting as witnesses to their final clash. The battle between both faction leaders ended with Megatron beaten down and goading Optimus into killing him. Prime refused to kill him, however, and following war's conclusion, Megatron was abandoned by his troops and ended up isolating himself, preferring to be left alone. Although Megatron once killed Optimus as Galvatron, this was under Unicron's orders and reversed. He also had the opportunity to kill Optimus during the conclusion but remained alone as his troops abandoned him. As the series progresses and Megatron only contributes to heroism to see what's going on, he gradually respects Optimus, even musing to him and wishing Prime to see him redeeming himself to commit genuine admirable deeds for the most power of the Primes. In addition, due to lack of detail of his crimes, they do not hurt him and likely more than made up for them anyways. He defeated Overlord and Megatronus to save Cybertron, even then sacrificed himself to defeat Unicron by holding him back. Megatron did fully redeem himself, but he still has some shade of his old self, such as his arrogance toward Megatronus while fighting him, even if it was a one-off moment or having minor jerkish moments. Megatron was a young mathematician who lectured at a university in Polyhex. Because of this, he noticed a disturbing trend in the numbers. Civil war was certain. His colleagues just called him crazy and laughed it off, but when the maniacal Optimus Prime and his evil army of Autobots took over Cybertron, Megatron had been waiting in the underground, forming a resistance movement called the Decepticons to take back Cybertron and keep the Autobots from conquering the universe and plundering it. As they head on to Cybertron, Megatron even invented the art of transforming to counter the Autobots' military superiority. When an attempted coup by Alphatron resulted in one of his trusted soldiers assassinating him, Megatron was resurrected by Nexus Prime into an even more powerful form known as Galvatron. Fueled by both the power of the 13 and the vision of a healed, peaceful Cybertron granted to him in the old spark, he is now an even more determined and powerful adversary to the evil Autobots, though the betrayal he suffers sometimes still haunts him. In both forms, he can wield the mighty Roundor tank, his weapon of choice. In contrast to Megatron from the original universe, in this universe, Megatron is portrayed as a noble-hearted figure who serves as a role model for all Cybertronian races. Unlike most incarnations of Megatron, he is very wise and even cares for his comrades. Megatron has shown the respect and love for all life, and even forgives Cyclonus and allows him to rejoin, even after the latter kill him. Likewise, he greatly cares about his Decepticons, the far cry from his mainstream universe version. Megatron had been forming an underground resistance movement to take back Cybertron, and keep the Autobots from conquering the universe and plundering it, as the Decepticons. After being resurrected as Galvatron, he even more compassion and wisdom to his subordinates. Megatron used to be the cruel and merciless leader of the Decepticons, who fought against Optimus Prime and his Autobots across both Cybertron and Earth. However, he's reformed in some point before the start of the series. He now works with Optimus and his Autobots, as well as GHOST, to protect the people of Earth, human and Cybertronian alike. Megatron cares deeply for his former troops, and dislikes GHOST's treatment of them. He's trying to make the best of a bad situation in the name of peace, but there's still a bit of tension between the two leaders. He develops a budding friendship with fellow veteran Doc Malto. As much as he has his doubts in the alliance with GHOST, he doesn't regret turning away from what he was becoming. Though the other Decepticons call him traitor, he's the only one who still believes in their original vision, the peaceful and plentiful future for the Cybertronian race. He sees Durant as the embodiment of that hope, and wants to make sure they don't make the same mistakes he now regrets. On an Earth that has long left the Transformers war behind, Robbie Malto and his younger sister Mo happen upon a mysterious cave. When they touch the strange artifact within it, they witness the creation of the Durant, a completely new type of Transformer, native to Earth. Meanwhile, their mother Dot is recruited by Optimus Prime, a light one and the reformed Megatron in their mission to track down rogue Decepticons. Megatron and Optimus found themselves struggling in battle against Frenzy, Laserbeak and Ravage after the Cassettabot stole Agent Schlotter's badge. With Bumblebee's help, the trio were captured, though Megatron was beginning to regret how they were treating his former comrade. On the way back to the GHOST base, they were attacked by Soundwave, and though Soundwave was defeated and captured, Megatron opted to let the 3 Cassettabot minions go. D-16 was a minor bot who was forcibly assigned to the Energon mines by the Functionist Council and began to spread writings calling out the Senate, which inspired several others to rise against the corrupt government forming the Decepticons, with Megatron becoming their leader and slowly becoming a more violent, heartless warlord who only lived for conquest until the moment where he realized the error of his ways and chose to redeem himself, pursuing redemption by ensuring a legacy that is more than death and carnage. He starting the Great War, which would cause countless deaths, nearly murdered Optimus Prime by crushing his spark after brutally beating him down, and beat Optimus Prime senseless and then carried him back to the Autobot where he surrendered just so he could taunt Optimus with the fact that Spike Witwicky had killed a Decepticon soldier in cold blood, which went against everything Optimus believed in. He redeemed himself after Bumblebee saved him when Galvatron tore him in half, as he becomes a full-fledged Autobot after B is killed by Shockwave and teams up with Optimus to defeat him, abandoning his past villainy and trying to become a better bot. It's also shown that despite his redemption, he still acknowledges how horrible and despicable all his previous actions were, which he openly admits to those around him, being willing to accept execution for his crimes, and making his top priority establishing a legacy that is more than death and destruction and joining the crew of Lost Light in their adventures. He overthrew both Zeta and Sentinel and got rid of corruption within Cybertronian society and saved the entire universe from being destroyed by the Functionist Primus replica. Even after fully redeeming himself and turning to the side of good, his many actions still hold a deep impact in the story, which he openly acknowledges and regrets. Originally known as D-16, he was a cocoless miner and a huge fan of Megatronus Prime who constantly had to keep his best friend Orion Pax out of trouble. He had been a friend of Orion Pax since they met and promised to have his back when mining Energon, as well as trying to tone down his mischievousness prior to the events of the film, preferring to simply stay on protocol. He helped Orion Pax save Jazz, convinced Starscream and the High Guard to fight Sentinel, and stood up to Sentinel Prime and later defeating him for good. However, even before his fall from grace, he is wrathful and lethal, as he killed a trooper and nearly killed Starscream had Orion not intervened. This also makes him an extremist, as he was also willing to use very lethal force against Sentinel to rally the High Guard. He is jerkish, as he said he transformed into a shovel to beat Orion up and said if he survived the Yukon 5000 he killed Orion. So even though our comedic moments those are still a bit jerkish even then, he becomes an anti-hero once he gains Onyx's code, deciding to kill Sentinel despite Orion trying to convince him otherwise, which ultimately contributed to his downfall. He slowly becomes more and more ruthless, abandoning his ideals and good intentions for the sake of tearing down Sentinel and all those who oppose him on his path to conquer Cybertron. PRRUTHLESSLY beating down Starscream and almost killing him as well as permanently damaging his voice box, led Orion Pax fall to his death to satisfy his own need to violently murder Sentinel, and attempted to destroy Yukon, though he greatly respects and looks up to Megatronus Prime. By using his face as the symbol for the Decepticons, Megatron unintentionally disgraces his idol's legacy by using his face as a symbol of hatred and violence. Upon being defeated and banished from Yukon, he states to Optimus that their conflict isn't over and takes the High Guard with him back to the surface and rebranding his cause as Decepticons, swearing to take down him and the Autobots. Despite completely subverting any care he had for Orion/Optimus, he still stood up and waited for whatever punishment the latter deemed fit after he finished talking about the former's betrayal and was shocked and heartbroken to hear that he and the High Guard are banished from Yukon City and not executed or imprisoned, but he nonetheless agreed, meaning he apparently still somewhat respects Orion. Also, in the post-credits, Megatron says that Optimus Prime is their stronger and personal enemy, meaning he sees his former friend as a worthy opponent.
Next up is the neutral bad tier. This tier is for the antagonists that are evil, but have their good moments, are evil for a reason, or aren't as bad as others.
He is the tyrannical leader of the Decepticons who waged war for thousands of years, resulting in the death of Cybertron, and now has teamed up with former Autobot leader Sentinel Prime to use the space bridge to bring Cybertron back by using Earth's resources, while his original film counterpart wishes to conquer both planets and as such eyes that Optimus, and this version is a more noble extremist who actually redeems himself in the end. He killed Sentinel to save Optimus and in the process preventing the destruction of Earth and mankind, and ended the Great War by calling a truce and joining with the Autobots. Since Age of Extinction and The Last Night weren't adapted by Peter David and the IDW comics aren't canon to the novelization, the admirable standard is lower than in the final film version. After Sentinel's death, he called a genuine truce with Optimus, having grown tired of the constant death and destruction caused by their conflict. finally ending the Great War once and for all. Furthermore, he was willing to let Optimus shoot him down to prove his intentions are genuine and not pragmatic. He vows to rebuild Cybertron once more with peace between Autobots and Decepticons, having both factions work as one. In spite of choosing to stop all forms of violence among the Decepticons, his actions on Earth are still far too severe for him to qualify as MPG, given that he spent most of his time as the villain, completely destroyed the city and amassed a massive kill count of millions of innocent humans, not to mention that the city is left in its destroyed state at the end with Megatron doing nothing to help rebuild. He also never shows any remorse for any of his previous crimes, and even if he did, they are still far too heinous and brutal to ignore. He is still an extremely lethal and sadistic individual who actively chooses to kill any and all foes in combat, as shown with his brutal assault on Sentinel. He is horribly abusive of his second-in-command Starscream, often beating him for his failings and at times for little to no reason at all other than for his own entertainment. While Starscream is the pure evil sadist who often tries to usurp Megatron as leader, it still doesn't change the fact that Megatron actively tortured the Seeker and several times without provocation. He is the leader of the Decepticons who seeks to claim the old park for himself and conquer Cybertron. He tore Bumblebee's voice box out, abused Starscream to the point he becomes even worse than him, and ordered Shockwave to sacrifice himself to have his spark destroy the old park and all Cybertron even with it. He then teleports to other universes in hopes of succeeding in his goals in every other universe and take over it. Even after his experience with the other ones started to mellow him down, in his attempts to stop him, Megatron captures some Autobots who were flying unsuspectedly to test his in-space rate to transport them into space. The void between universes, which would have killed them as in-space breaks down alternative to other universes. Thanks to the actions of Megatron X, some decisions by Megatron now are painted in an extremely honorable and sympathetic light, allowing Optimus Prime and Bumblebee to leave even after they both refuse to join him, sparing their lives. He is willing to have multiple peace talks, and is willing to side with Optimus Prime to fight bigger threats like Starscream, Megatron X and the Quintessence, painting him as the lighter shade of black, and he only betrays the Autobots only after what seemed to them that they have defeated them, and not betraying them right before they could even stop the Quintessence from annihilating their universe, before immediately returning back to save the universe from them. He also is willing to honor the peace treaty despite some occasions, with the Autobots as subjects to weapons testing happening after they were flying above trying to spy on him, and was backing down when the Autobots invaded to claim Windblade after realizing he would be violating the treaty and keeping her captive in his territory. Having not known of this, he has shown to be extremely disgusted by his alternate self's illness, saving Astrotrain and the Insecticons from him. Due to that, he returns to his main universe to save it from annihilation by Starscream and then prepares to save all of Cybertron from his wrath knowing of his vile crimes. He's shown to have regretted his mistreatment of Starscream, especially after what he did. Extremely mellow down after his encounter with Megatron X, eventually redeems himself trying to save Cybertron from him, and when his plan fails and he gets murdered by him, his final words are making peace with Optimus and encouraging him to stand up to Megatron X. His death is also played for sympathy. He is the tyrannical founder of the Decepticons and the former best friend and arch-nemesis of Optimus Prime who started the Great War that devastated Cybertron. Having already set up operations on Earth, Megatron goes on a 3-year absence on a hunt for the prophesized blood of Unicron, Dark Anarchan. He started the Great War and rendering Cybertron uninhabitable, destroyed Bumblebee's voice box, infected Raph, who is only a 12-year-old boy, with Dark Anarchan and almost killing him, destroyed the Autobot base and temporarily killing Optimus Prime, tried to wipe out humanity and all organic life on Earth by using the Omega Block to cyberform the entire planet, and temporarily killed Bumblebee. While Megatron didn't really have a great start, being a slave miner without a proper name that had to fight in gladiator battle to call out the oppressive caste system that placed him and others there, seeking to reform it. As it turns out, Megatron had only cared about his own selfish lust for power than getting justice for his society or even inflicting the misery he had as a slave to others, thus becoming the very thing he swore to destroy. He threatened to rip out the voice boxes of his subordinates should they ever address or impact as Optimus Prime in order to prevent the latter from regaining his memories. However, he ultimately redeemed himself after being revived, possessed, and tortured by Unicron, the latter of which showed him the true meaning of oppression. As a result, he lost his taste for inflicting it after being freed from Unicron's control once Optimus imprisoned the latter. Megatron refuses to heed Starscream's advice of restarting his feud with the Autobots. Instead, he disowns the Decepticons, thus making him want to end the Great War once and for all, and goes into self-imposed exile, believing there isn't a place for himself on the newly reformed Cybertron. His brutal torture by Unicron is still portrayed sympathetically, especially when Unicron taunts Prime for trying through to Megatron, as he was forced to remember the time where he was a victim and slave of the caste system, which served as the catalyst for realizing the error of his ways and redemption. The Japanese Generation 1 timeline is a massive train wreck of continuity due to many continuity errors and plot holes, which was explained in universe by Spectre Prime due to the unstable reality. so some of his acts may or may not be canon. He attempted to kill off his troops for parts and turn the Earth into his body to become Grand Galvatron, enslave countless alien races, attempted to destroy and recreate the entire multiverse in his own image, and stole humanity from Earth. He shares pretty much the same history USA cartoon counterpart up to the events of the Return of Optimus Prime. Before their histories diverge since the cartoon ampersand movie are canon, as it started off as the Japanese dub of the American cartoon. Unlike his USA cartoon counterpart, he laid down arms and made peace with Optimus Prime and formed the Cybertronian Alliance. And while he did dissolve it later on, it was due to his friend Caliton being killed, and did it to protect his Decepticons and believe only true peace, making him gave and good enough excuse to make him tragic and a genuine extremist. He cares for his Decepticons, and while was less affable at first, he became more affable to others such as Legend Well Megatron, Armada Megatron, and even former enemies such as Optimus Prime and humans such as Spike Witwicky. He fully redeems himself, ended a great war to make a better future with the Autobots, and saved the multiverse from being destroyed and remade by Gold Megatron. While Megatron did redeem himself and shed all of his corrupting qualities by the events of Legends and Generations Selects, which makes him wholly reformed, but he committed too many heinous crimes before then, to the point that it is very much impossible for him to completely make up to nullify them with his venerable actions. Once the former brother of Optimus Prime, he becomes the apprentice of the Fallen to find the Decepticons and wage the infamous Transformer Civil War on a bit for control that saw the planet destroyed. Seeking to rebuild Cybertron out of concern for his homeworld, Megatron frequently attempts to wipe out all life on Earth to do so, doing it either by himself or even be willing to lie with ruthless allies such as the Fallen, Sentinel Prime and Quintessa to do the heavy lifting of their plans. He initiated the Cybertronian War, which destroyed the entire planet, tried to use the Allspark to create an army to exterminate humanity, rip Jazz in half, and help Quintessa in her quest to destructively reassemble Earth. Overall, he is the ruthless, tyrannical, manipulative, deceptive, psychopathic and power-hungry tyrant who rules over the Decepticons with an iron fist, waging a brutal war against the Autobots in the name of total universal domination and to conquer Cybertron. He has a xenophobic hatred towards humanity and organic beings in general, viewing them as inferior beings who don't deserve to live. He constantly abuses and mistreats Starscream, his second-in-command. Though he deserves it, Megatron does so out of sadism and not disgust over his actions. While mostly a power-hungry lunatic, it is progressively shown that Megatron has a genuinely extremist goal to restore his home planet Cybertron to its former glory. In Revenge of the Fallen, he is happily serving the Fallen so that by absorbing the sun, they can restore Cybertron using the energy harvested and secure their race's future. In Dark of the Moon, he solemnly watches Cybertron's revival with joy, and in the last night he bitterly blames Optimus for Cybertron's destruction and has been working with Quintessa so that he can see by his own admission his home be restored. He genuinely cares about his master, the Fallen, showing loyalty and respect towards him that he is the only person he is actually willing to bow down to, and he regretted his failure towards his master. Upon seeing Optimus killing the Fallen, Megatron is earnestly saddened seeing it and then leaves bitterly swearing vengeance. He calls the deceased Starscream his old, treacherous friend, despite mistreating his right-hand man for his treasons before, and laments the fact he won't be able to see reclaim Cybertron under the Decepticon rule and the destruction of Earth, showing that he has some small respect for him. Megatron is the extremely powerful, destructive, and warmongering leader of the Decepticons who started a civil war on Cybertron which turned the planet into a wasteland, and he is now hell-bent on destroying humankind and the Earth. His cause has led to him coming into conflict with his former brother-in-arms and archenemy, Optimus Prime. In all versions of the game, he started a civil war on Cybertron and exterminated all Autobots. In the console version, he pulverized Optimus, paid off his slave and killed all life on Earth. In the DS version, he killed Create-A-Bot by ripping out and cannibalizing his part. While he isn't shown abusing his subordinates heavily like in most continuities, he doesn't care for them as shown when he blatantly disregards some of his minions' deaths and overall seeks to conquer and destroy anything he wants for himself. Megatron is a version of Megatron that after the interference of a time-traveling Rumble was successfully able to take over the entire world and enslave of Hill Valley, forcing them to mine for energon and killing them whenever they failed to meet their production quotas. He forced many humans to mine for energon and killing any that failed to meet their production quotas. While Megatron is quite distant for most of the story, we do see flashbacks of what he did, and his presence and the effects of the world he created are very clear throughout the entire story, making it so that his crimes aren't off-screen.
Last up is the most evil tier. This tier is for the antagonists that have little to no redeemable qualities, have done the worst of things.
Much like his original counterpart from Generation 1, he is the ruthless founder and leader of the Decepticons who believe in peace through tyranny, and wants to conquer the universe. Upon arriving on Earth, he restarted war as well as beginning a genocide against humanity, coming at odds with the AI, known as Skynet. He is also the archenemy of his former brother-in-arms Optimus Prime, In the original timeline, he killed all of the Autobots before their awakening inside the Ark and decimated humanity. In the rewritten timeline, he damaged most of the still dormant Autobots inside the Ark by shooting at it and attempted to kill all of Cyberdyne Systems' employees. He tried to kill Optimus Prime before RC threw the T-800 towards the wound on his chest and into his spark chamber to fired at his heart. Although he was revived as Skynet's AI, along with the T-800, his smirk suggests he's still the same irredeemable tyrant he was. Upon learning about the deception and its true plan, he sent the Seekers and the Insecticons to destroy Skynet's core. Once a gladiator turned revolutionary named Megatron who was motivated to tear down an oppressive caste system alongside his best friend, Orion Pax. The lust for power grew within Megatron that made him much more violent, leading to him getting rejected by the Autobot High Council and straining his friendship with Orion. Becoming Megatron, he founds the Decepticons for war against Cybertron, putting him at odds with his former best friend, Orion Pax, who has later become the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime. For his ultimate bit of power, Megatron turned to Dark Energon, the corruptive, unstable form of Energon to bend Cybertron to his will. He infected Cybertron's core with Dark Energon and had several shuttles filled with evacuees destroyed. He remorselessly killed 2 Autobot spies named Bumper and Fastback, claiming that their lives were worthless compared to the millions of lives suffering under Sentinel Prime's leadership on Cybertron. Although he claimed that he had nothing to do with the extremist terrorist attacks done by some of the Decepticons, it is heavily implied that he did have something to do with them and only claimed to be innocent to gain sympathy and credibility from the masses. Alpha Trion even theorized that Megatron developed a sense of bloodlust after gaining attention from his violent tendencies inside the gladiator arenas of Kaon. In the peak of Megatron's madness, he sets up Trypticon and has him destroy several Autobot shuttles filled with evacuees wanting to flee, leading to thousands of casualties, out of a method that they aren't doing in his terms when Optimus refused his truce to do the same earlier, thus is not one in control anymore. Megatron orders Trypticon to destroy Yukon City, the capital of the Autobots, and Optimus Prime. While heavily implied to have been a slave who suffered from Cybertron's oppressive system, he initially joined with his best friend Orion Pax to have it abolished and ensure freedom for all Cybertronians, but then Megatron abandoned such desires for the sake of becoming an even worse oppressor and subjugate everybody, rendering any potential for the excuse null because his past does not motivate his present-day crimes, just a lust for power and a god complex. While he claims that he wants to return Cybertron to its former glory, it is very evident Megatron is only an egomaniac concerned with his own power than actually acting on the best interests of Cybertron. He is a horrific boss to his troops, forcing them all to do tasks that have very high chances of killing them lest he would have them executed should they refuse to even object to such orders. Whenever his men get killed, Megatron shrugs them off as failures not fit to serve him. Unlike previous versions of Galvatron, who was the reincarnated Megatron, this version was a separate entity, being an ancient Cybertronian who was rivals with Nova Prime. Galvatron was an ancient Cybertronian who was a brutal warrior and had a sibling who would eventually become a Kree. He also came from the barbaric age before the rise of the 13 Primes. Galvatron and his sibling RC were the slaves of Septimus Prime until Galvatron fought and killed him. Since then, Galvatron rose to power and became a commander of his own squad. He was soon to be called Galvatron of the Darklands and at some point would meet Nova Prime and form a bond with him. They would soon meet up again and be trapped in the Dark Universe with his minions Cyclonus and Scourge. In the present time, Galvatron and his group were awakened and revived during the events of the Devoid and the Dark Universe, after which he teams up with Nova in an alliance to take over Cybertron and the universe. After Nova's death, Galvatron would later become the leader of the Decepticons after Megatron quits and becomes an Autobot. He would face conflict within the group due to him not being like Megatron. Soundwave in particular loathes him for not being like Megatron. Galvatron would lead the Decepticons on Earth where he would conflict with Optimus Prime and the Autobots until Optimus was forced to kill him to end his reign of terror. Megatron is one of the most vicious and dangerous enemies of the Autobots and the arch-enemy of Autobot leader Optimus Prime. Megatron returns in his most depraved outing, yet wanting to do as many depraved things as he can to attract Optimus' attention and pastime during his wait so he can go out in a full blaze of glory. He is the original leader of the Decepticons, having resurrected many of his fallen soldiers to menace the Earth when stranded there. He decimated most of Earth simply to get Optimus Prime's attention and put Starscream and Ratchet in fate's worse and death. To pay back Starscream for his treachery to very extreme end, Megatron grants him an ounce of spark to ensure Starscream is aware of everything around him, and yet is unable to do anything as he is forced to do Megatron's bidding against his will, while frequently mocking his state. Ratchet has it worst of all, in which Megatron reduces him to mere head, helpless, frozen, unable to do or say anything, as he is forced to see what all atrocities Megatron commits, all for the sake of ensuring his own immortality due to the psychic link they both share and thus can be unkillable. His crimes are so horrific that it caused both Shockwave and Starscream, two of the most treacherous and selfish villains of the series, to not only abandon their evil ways, but become vouchers for universal peace in the end. Megatron is the ruthless leader of the Decepticons after overthrowing their previous leader, Megazord, and rallying up support from his minions. He sought to conquer Cybertron, initiating the Great War that led to countless casualties. He eventually suffered a 50-year downfall when fighting a crew of repair bots who found the old spark thanks to a bomb planted by his second-in-command, Starscream. He is the arch-enemy of Optimus Prime, who is one of the only Autobots that Megatron calls by name. He instigated the Great War, resulting in millions of deaths, used chemical weapons to wipe out entire battlefields and bomb multiple civilian areas all across Cybertron, thus killing multiple innocent civilians, tried to convince Soundwave to enslave or wipe out all of humanity, attempted to lay waste Earth and raise it upon merging with the Allspark, attempted to trap all of the Autobots in a fate worse than death, and caused the Decepticon uprisings, enabling the Decepticons all across the galaxy to wage war in various parts of the universe and cause mass chaos, killing several more people. While he does claim he is fighting for the freedom of all Decepticons from Autobot tyranny, and the Elite Guard have shown to be strict to straight-up ruthless, this is shown to be more and more of an empty rhetoric coincidental to Megatron's own bloodlust, sacrificing any of his soldiers if convenient in the battlefield as revealed in tie-in comics, and blatantly admits the power-hungry side towards him as the reason for not using himself as the template to clone Omega Supreme, and his overall endgame is to conquer Cybertron to enforce another autocratic rule. In general, all the time Megatron even talks of bringing freedom is whenever he is manipulating or rallying the Decepticons and nowhere else. He shows no care for the Decepticons, including Blitzwing, Larknot, his most loyal follower, Soundwave, and Shockwave, as he only saw them as pawns for his goals. Even though he praised Shockwave for his loyalty, it was for pragmatic reasons since he was so successful in his endeavors. Ultimately, almost every Prime in Transformers animated are tied to him, and he is generally responsible for the series happening in the first place. This is very heinous as villains like Lockdown, Meltdown, Shockwave, Black Arachnia, Swindle, Headmaster, Starscream, and Soundwave have committed pretty heinous crimes. Megatron's presence itself would be tied to them one way or another. Megatron X, also known as the Other One, is an alternate version of Megatron who lacks all of the any positive traits that were still present despite his villainy, having shot his former best friend, Optimus Prime, to death rather than honorably letting him go when he refused to join him, before stealing his matrix of leadership, winning the Great War, and achieving his goal of creating the race of perfect Decepticons that he has brainwashed upon their creation to be his mindless slaves. He murdered Optimus Prime instead of letting him leave before stealing his matrix, and attempting to do it again after he's restored, reprogrammed all the perfect Decepticons he just created to be mindless slaves for him to use, whipped out most of his loyal Decepticons when they had no use for him, and murdered his counterpart of his main universe while calling him a thief and is not even worthy of being him before stealing the matrix from him. The very purpose of his character is to prove the main Megatron may be a really evil person, but he isn't as bad as could have become because he has honor and other redeeming qualities. This Megatron, however, lacks any of the redeeming qualities and honor he had, shed his extremist qualities like his original version, and became motivated for power. When Optimus Prime refused his offer to join him, he then coldly shoots his best friend to death, before stealing the matrix of leadership from his dying body while laughing. Used a laser snare to destroy the Quintessence ship when they invaded his universe, killing all of the Quintessence present. While this has the benefit of making the Quintessence weak to the point they were extinguished by the alliance of the Autobots and Decepticons when they tried to destroy the main universe, which they definitely deserved for the horrendous things they did, he only did it because they invaded his territory. He is very much responsible for why Karn is the way he is, and all the crimes he did can be blamed on him as well. He was so awful that the main Megatron, seeing what he did, not only disgusted and horrified him, but was also heavily implied to be what caused the main Megatron to mellow out and come back to his universe and save it from Starscream and not kill Optimus Prime after that, and eventually leading to his redemption by the end of the Season 3. Megatron is the leader of the Darksiders, a group of rogue Predacons, the descendants of the Decepticons, that were stranded on a prehistoric Earth following a confrontation with the Maximal ship, the Uxalon, before becoming the ruler of Cybertron and creator/master of the Vehicons after his victory at the end of the Beast Wars during his marooning on Earth. He is the arch-nemesis of both Optimus Primal and Dinobot. He renamed himself after the dark and terrifying myth, the original Megatron from the Covenant of Primus, who is heavily implied to have been Megatron himself due to the time travel. He caused Optimus Primal's first death, torture Rampage into submission by extracting half of his spark and slowly crushing it, attempted to slaughter the Anthropoid to erase humanity from existence, mortally wounded Optimus Prime, almost erasing the Maximal from existence in the process, killed Tigerhawk with a Nemesis cannon and attempting to do the same to both the Anthropoids and all the Transformers in the arc, accidentally killing Inferno and Quickstrike, two of his last remaining lieutenants. In the process, conquered Cybertron and stealing the sparks of majority of its people, while turning their bodies into mindless drones under his control, devoured billions of sparks in order to attain godhood, and attempted to remake Cybertron and therefore the rest of the universe in his own corrupt image, wiping out all organic life in the process. While he does have some admiration for the original Megatron, he is nearly fanatical about him and even rips out and abuses his part just to boost his own power. This invalidated further when he attempts to destroy the Ark on which his namesake is still aboard on, though instances lock in the series finale of Beast Wars, which itself would wipe out most of the Cyberatronian race from existence as a result of the time storm, due to being so caught up with the thought of victory. He cares nothing for his teammates, mistreating them constantly, having even shot at them for failure, incompetence, or just merely because he is in a bad mood or they have just annoyed him. Even his most loyal minions, Scorponok and Inferno, Megatron doesn't even care that they even died as a result of his actions. It means he only views them as pawns for his goals. Starting out as a renegade member of the white group of Predacons, he initially leads a small group of Predacons against an enemy group of Maximals, which both groups growing in numbers over time. However, it is once he returns to Cyberatron that he truly reaches the height of his power, managing to take over the entire planet with much ease and fill it with hordes of mindless soldiers that serve his every whim, allowing him to easier war against the Maximal team that originally outnumbered him. Thanks to his efforts with time travel, his influence has also been spread far and wide between time, allowing him to directly interact with and even nearly alter the past of the original Autobot Decepticon conflict to suit his own means, not to mention that he's implied to have indirectly inspired his namesake and even himself as a result of his villainy being recorded in the Covenant of Primus.
The Bronze Medal of Evil goes to
Megatron is the founder and leader of the Decepticons who plots to conquer the planet Cyberatron and the rest of the universe and would later gain a new form, Galvatron, in a deal with Unicron himself, and seeks to free himself from his control to continue his own desires to rule the universe. He is the arch-nemesis of Optimus Prime, the leader of the Decepticons' rival faction, the Autobots. He killed Diane and mortally wounding Laura and Pax and Ariel in cold blood, permanently brainwashed several Autobots and neutral Decepticons into becoming evil Decepticons, destroyed Autobot City and murdering Optimus Prime, sold out Cyberatron to both Unicron and the Quintessence, and attempted to destroy the entire solar system with plasma energy. Megatron is also completely devoid of any tragic past or well-intentioned motivations in Generation 1. In his first act of war, he gunned down the benevolent Autobot leader, Sentinel Prime, ending Cyberatron's golden age and starting the war. When Optimus pleads for Megatron to destroy the Combaticons for the danger they pose to the galaxy, having nearly destroyed Cyberatron and Earth, Megatron goes against his word to Optimus for his own end as he rewrites them to his control. Even when noticeably much more insane thanks to falling in a plasma pit, Galvatron was already a brutal tyrant while sane, and for his terrible mental state, knows he is an evil conqueror and enjoys it, and then by the time of Season 4, regains his former sanity. Upon his return, Galvatron attacks Cyclonus and Scourge just to assert his dominance over the Decepticons, and even blindly massacre nearly all his Decepticon followers for answering to the Quintessence when Galvatron was presumed dead. While he ends Season 3 declaring a truce with the Autobots after the revived Optimus Prime saves him and the universe from the hate plague, this apparent display of gratitude and honor as he broke the truce, he declared in the Season 3 finale to attack several Autobots, including Ultra Magnus, and then drain them of their energon to power engines that would transport Cyberatron all the way to Earth, condemning them all to a slow death until Optimus Prime was able to arrive and rescue them on time. In Beast Wars, Transformers, it is revealed that the war that Megatron started became so bad that after it ended, the descendants of both the Decepticons and Autobots, the Predacons and the Maximals had to go through physical changes, such as adopting smaller bodies in order to adapt to less amount of resources which war has cost. It is also revealed that the Predacons are facing prejudice due to the war crimes of their ancestors under Megatron's leadership, with many Predacons desiring to restore the glory of the Decepticons. He also inspired a rogue Predacon criminal who took off the name Megatron and became a power-hungry psychopathic megalomaniac with a massive god complex and became even more despicable than his namesake ever was, as he not only almost destroyed time and space twice, but also managed to wipe out almost the entire Cyberatronian race to become a god. Although Predacon Megatron's crimes are solely his own choices, the original Megatron did kind of inspire him, thus making him posthumously responsible for the events of both Beast Wars and Beast Machines.
the Silver Medal of Evil goes to
Megatron, later Galvatron, is the leader of the Predacons, and an infamous conqueror who turned multiple planets to lifeless husks upon conquering them, before moving to Earth to find Fortress Maximus and use him to conquer the entire universe, placing him at odds with the Autobots. Initially, Megatron would often sit back from a conflict and allow his subordinates to do the dirty work, but as Galvatron, he would become more active. While arrogant, diabolical, and manipulative, Megatron was also incompetent and unprofessional, as most of his schemes were badly planned and badly executed. Megatron was the sixth chainer, able to transform into 5 additional modes aside from his robot form, a twin-headed dragon, the Bat-Gargoyle creature, the race car, the spaceship, and a claw. After becoming Galvatron, he gained an additional 4 modes, including a hydrofoil, a griffin, a pterodactyl, and an elephant. He also has the ability to absorb energy from other life forms, making him an energy vampire. Each form has its own different frightening capabilities, making Galvatron a very unstable and unpredictable fighter. He painfully brainwashed all the children in the world to turn them to his slaves to conquer the world, threatening their safety to force Optimus into ceasefire, and using such methods to conquer the rest of the universe and sent his mindless drones, the Decepticons, to a suicide mission to crash the space bridge network to destroy them and the Autobots, comparing that all his other Predacon minions were still present and end up being killed, so he can have the planet for himself to conquer and destroy. While Megatron had genuine respect for his men if they prove themselves worthy, upon becoming Galvatron, he outright discards any respect and care for his men, draining the energy of Gas-Skunk, Darkscream and Slapper to fuel his rebirth. To heal himself, Galvatron drains the energy of Fortress Maximus and nearly kills him as a result. When the Autobots flee into the space bridge network, Megatron tries to kill them all by sending the Decepticons to collapse it, with the main intentions of having them and even other of his loyal Predacon minions killed on the crossfire when it turned out they were also present, gleefully sacrificing all his men to have the entire planet for himself.
The gold medal for the most evil character goes to
Megatron, later known as Galvatron, is the arrogant and power-hungry leader of the Decepticons who became sworn enemies with the Autobots, specifically towards their leader Optimus Prime, also his arch-nemesis. In addition to this, Megatron was responsible for the Great War that ravaged Cybertron, having instigated that in the first place. While originally a leader who had morbid respect for Optimus as well as displaying a twisted care for his own underlings, as the story progresses, Megatron's lust for power slowly turns him into a viler tyrant from each installment until becoming a power-hungry psychopath who cares for no one but himself, thus becoming the biggest threat to the entire universe behind Unicron himself. He tried to destroy the Earth with a Hydra cannon, resulting in Optimus Prime temporarily dying in the process of destroying it, reawakened Unicron, before nearly feeding Cybertron to him, torturously brainwashed several Decepticons, even ones that already loyal to him, into serving him, tortured Inferno into serving him, driving him to end his own life as a result, mortally wounded Hotshot, Red Lord, and Scattershot just to spite Optimus Prime, and nearly let the entire universe be destroyed by the Unicron singularity just so he could remake it in his image, without caring that his own men would die. While he did have some redeeming qualities and has some heroic acts in Armada and Energon, he loses them all by the events of Cytron. While Galvatron sacrifices himself to destroy Unicron once and for all by the end of Energon, it was not out of any altruistic desire to save the entire universe or genuine moral standards against Unicron to make him an ampersand off, but out of a purely selfish, egotistical and pragmatic desire to prove nobody could control the mighty Galvatron, as he says so himself, and achieve his destiny and his new world to rule, so it isn't a mitigating factor.
And with that, the list is done. If you have your own character that should be ranked differently, or if I forgot a character, please let me know in the comment section below.